What's up everybody, my name is The Holy Apple and welcome to a new video. So this video I figured I'm going to talk about the DLCs in Destiny, more specifically like which ones you should buy in order, because that's kind of like a hot topic that gets debated on Reddit a lot and I think on Twitter a little bit as well. But nobody really knows like the direction of where to go if they're just starting Destiny and what DLCs they want to get. Obviously, like the no-brainer thing is to play the game for a while first and see if you actually enjoy it on the free-to-play mode, because you get access to like Crucible, Gambit, Vanguard Strikes, and pretty much a lot of the base game straight off the bat for no fee whatsoever, so it's highly recommend you try it at the very least. But when we actually talk about DLCs, I'm actually going to break this down into an order of which ones I'd probably get if I was starting out Destiny 2, knowing what I know right now. So the first DLC I'd buy straight out would be the Witch Queen, and the reason I'm picking the Witch Queen first is because the campaign is extremely gripping and fun to play. And not only that, there is actually a legendary mode on top of it, so there is a harder difficulty to play if you want an added challenge. It's the first time Bungie's done something like this, so it's actually a really exciting prospect that they're going to be taking into Lightfall as well. And not to mention it's the latest DLC anyway, so you are basically going to have a very good understanding where the story's at, and you'll be able to know enough when you go into Lightfall. Another bonus and why I'd recommend the Witch Queen as well is that you actually get introduced into the crafting system as it was intended, because the Witch Queen is when crafting first came out, so it's actually incorporated into the story mission, so rather than you just get thrown at it with a load of text, there's actually some context behind it as to why you're doing the crafting, and in my opinion, it's actually a lot better when it comes to introducing it through the campaign than it does with its other story that it's got at the minute to introduce it. And on top of this as well, you get access to quite a few activities, so off the top of my head, there's the Wellspring activity, there's also the Preservation mission that you get towards the end of the campaign, because that's when you unlock it. And also, if you have a team of 6, you will unlock the Vow of the Disciple raid, which in my eyes is probably one of the better raids at the moment, especially with Rook being the final boss. Rook is probably the greatest boss that's been made for the game so far, in my opinion. So just as a summary, the Witch Queen is basically the full package when it comes to buying DLCs, so that is going to be my first recommendation. The second recommendation after Witch Queen, so let's say you've just beat the entire campaign of Witch Queen, you want something more, I would then recommend going into the latest season, which currently is Season of the Plunder, or Blunder, however you want to see it. And this is so you can experience the current story events that are ongoing, and at the same time, you get to experience the new weapons that I've just dropped recently, which are all pirate themed this season, so it's definitely worth trying at the very least. Not to mention, if it is this season that you buy, then you get access to things like the Catch Crash, the Exhibition, and also the pirate layers, where you get to fight mini-bosses, which are kind of like lost sectors in a way, but that's pertaining to the story, I won't go too much into it. So yeah, that segment was actually quite short and sweet, because there's not really much else to talk about without it going into spoilers, so going over to the next recommendation, it would be Beyond Light. And the reason I'm picking Beyond Light after the latest season is because Beyond Light is still a very good campaign to experience and go through, not to mention you unlock stasis as well, so it's worth doing. But in terms of like a narrative and the storytelling at the moment, Witch Queen and the latest season are really the only two that you need to be kind of involved with. You could say Season of the Haunted was a very big one as well, but I'll get into that in a minute. But Beyond Light itself is quite a good story, and it does have a lot of hidden little tricks, especially if you're returning veterans, you might recognise some of the characters that are involved. But on top of this, you also unlock the Deepstone Crypt raid, which was a very good raid as well. I'm not going to knock it too much. And not to mention, with the campaign unlock, you get to explore the entirety of the Europa map, including all the hidden parts that you don't currently know about. And not to mention, on top of all this, you also get access to the Lament, which is my favourite sword in all of Destiny, and I'd highly recommend anybody gets it if they get the Beyond Light DLC. But let's assume that you've already spent a ridiculous amount of money and you've got all three that I've just mentioned. Then there is a fourth selection, which is the Bungie 30th Anniversary or Dungeon Passes. I'm grouping these together for a specific reason. And that is because if you buy the Bungie 30th Anniversary, you are more than likely buying it for the Avarice dungeon more than Dares of Eternity. I'm sorry to say, it's just how it is. Although Dares of Eternity is quite a good activity to unlock, but if you just go over Grasp of Avarice very quickly, it's a fairly good dungeon, and you get to unlock the Galahorn, which is more than likely going to be a very big crutch when it comes to a lot of PvE activities. Not to mention it's used widely in PvP as well, so it's got the best of both worlds in a way. And this is why I'm grouping it in with Dungeon Passes, because you've got the Duality Dungeon that's come along recently, which, to be honest, if you were going to do the Duality Dungeon, you're probably hunting for a Storm Chaser Linear Fusion Rifle, because even though they got nerfed a little bit, they're still very good. So buying the 30th Anniversary or the Dungeon Passes, let's face it, you are literally buying it to just unlock better weapons, or you're just having a dungeon experience to experience with your fire team. It's either one of those. So the 30th Anniversary and the Dungeon Passes aren't essential to buy, but I would recommend getting them if you are chasing weapons, or you just want that little bit of extra content that's not overwhelming like a storyline. Which then nicely brings me into my last kind of option, which is pretty much everything else I've missed. Anything that is an old season or DLC that is available, that will be coming last. So if you think something like Shadowkeep, I'd honestly only buy it if you are really bored in Destiny and you want to experience Shadowkeep for yourself. There's no other reason why you'd actually buy it unless you were trying to unlock Garden of Salvation to do the raid. That's pretty much the only thought line I have. Obviously, this is a bit touch and go because Season of the Haunted was technically the last season where we had a storyline content because it was about Callus. But again, I'm not going to talk about it too much because I'll be spoiling it. But you can openly say that Callus is confirmed for Lightfall anyway, so you don't technically have to have it to understand what's going on. You just know that he's going to be an enemy in Lightfall anyway. But when you think about Season of the Risen, the storyline is pretty much redundant in that mission line now, unless you are taking it literally as you do the Witch Queen first, and then you follow up through the seasons one by one. Like, that is the only way I can see Season of the Risen being relevant anymore. But that is basically my general order of how I'd go on getting the DLCs at the moment. So, by all means, follow it if you want. Don't have to. It is your decision at the end of the day. But let me know what you guys think about all this. What kind of DLCs would you be looking at getting first, or seasons even? What kind of content would you be pushing new players to get first? But that is going to be it for the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you all in the next one.